Why should I read the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi? A Hindu sage and a liberated being. He was born in Tiruchuli, Tamil Nadu, India. In 1985, an attraction to the sacred hill of Arunachala was aroused in him, and in 1896, at the age of 16, he had a near death experience where he became aware of the current or the force which he recognized as his true I or the self, and which he later identified with the personal God or Ishvara, that is Shiva. This resulted in a state he later described as the state of mind or Ishvara or the Jnani. 6 weeks later, he left his uncle's home in Madurai and journeyed to the holy mountain of Arunachala in Tiruvannamalai, where he took on the role as a sannyasi, though not formally initiated, and remained a sannyasi for the rest of his life. He attracted devotees that regarded him as an avatar and came to him for darshan, which is the sight of God. In the later years, an ashram grew up around him where visitors received upadesha or spiritual instruction by sitting silently in his company asking questions. These questions were later compiled into a book titled Talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi. Ramana Maharishi approved a number of paths and practices but recommended self-inquiry as a principal means to remove ignorance and abide in self-awareness together with bhakti or devotion and surrender to the self. How would we relate the two together, the talks and the inquiry, and what's the link between the two? How would I grasp the initial concept of who am I, the core of what Ramana Maharishi was trying to reach out to his devotees? The book Talk with Sri Ramana Maharishi was compiled by Alan Chadwick during the 4 years from 1935 to 1939. This work painstakingly recorded the conversations that took place in the old hall between Bhagwan Ramana Maharishi and his devotees. The people from all faiths and every walk of life came to sit at Bhagwan Ramana Maharishi's feet. Whether ignorant or not, a simple peasant or a royalty, they travelled from far corners of the earth to place their doubts before him and just to sit in his divine presence. His infinite compassion and unique insight ensured that none from his ashram left empty-handed. Their questions covered every aspect of spiritual research and every problem troubling the human mind. Maharishi's answers led gently the questioner to the correct solution, which each question answered according to the questioner's own level of spiritual development. All had their doubts dispelled, their hearts suffered with peace, and their beings uplifted in his presence. The book is a truthful chronicle of such happenings, reflecting the warmth, the humor, and the deep spiritual atmosphere generated by the Master, his presence. His work is a treasure house for all who seek the highest truth. Sri Bhagwan's teaching of self-inquiry is the core of this work. However, doctrinal questions from the various faiths such as Hindu, Christianity have also been answered by Bhagwan Ramana Maharishi. His explanations have revealed the common thread underlying all faiths and the absolute unity of the spiritual quest, irrespective of the diverse paths encountered on the journey to the highest goal. First printed in 1955, the book has been reprinted 16 times. Somerset Maugham visited India and met Sri Ramana Maharishi. It is said that the famous important work of Somerset Maugham's Razor's Edge is based on the philosophy of Ramana Maharishi. So, when you go through the book, what I found interesting was the following aspect. Let's take a look at the below 3 dialogues between the devotees and Sri Ramana Maharishi. A youth of 20 asked how to realize the self. He sat down in silence and waited for more than an hour and then was about to leave. While doing so, he asked, "How do I realize the self?" Maharishi replied, "Whose self?" find out. The devotee asked, "Who am I?" Ramana Maharishi said, "Find it yourself." The devotee then said, "I do not know." Bhagwan replied, "Think. Who is it that says, I do not know? What is not known?" In that statement, who is the I? The devotee said, "Somebody in me." Who is that somebody? In whom? Maybe some power. The Maharishi said, "Find it." How do I realize Brahman? Maharishi said, "Without knowing the self, why do you seek to know the Brahman?" Another conversation goes like this. Maharishi asked a devotee, "Is there a mind?" Another devotee generally replied, "The mind is only a collection of thoughts." Then Maharishi replied, "To whom are those thoughts? If you try to locate the mind vanishes and the self alone remains. Being alone, there can be no one-pointedness or otherwise." The devotee then said, "It is so difficult to understand this. If something concrete is said, it can be really grasped. Japa, dhyana, etc. are more concrete." Maharishi then replied, "Who am I? Is then the best japa." Here is another conversation. Maharishi says, "This manifestation had induced your question." The devotee replied, "True. I am covered by Maya. How can I be free from it?" Maharishi replied, "Who is covered by Maya? Who wants to be free?" The devotee replied, "Master, being asked who, I know that it is ignorant me, composed of senses, mind and body. I tried this inquiry who, after reading Paul Brunton's book 3 or 4 times, I was feeling elated, and the elation lasted some time and then faded away. How to be established in the I? Please give me a clue and help me." In all these dialogues, Sri Ramana Maharishi is seeming to point to some place unusual. He is basically suggesting to use a weapon of inquiry by using who in relation to it. He seems to be suggesting to ask a question to whom are these thoughts and to who is this somebody and who is covered by Maya. And if you note this, the concept repeats over and over and over again. What I noticed in the process of the inquiry is that when you run a certain emotion and you are totally caught up by it, in order to identify that one that is making the emotions up, he is just suggesting to ask the question, who is bringing up this emotion? The result is that the fictitious ego then has to recoil itself and back out as it has been rightfully challenged in its own tracks. The hard part why we are unable to succeed in this inquiry is mainly due to the fact that we are totally invested in our ego and that we are a someone, and the tentacles of that ego have to be then recoiled. We generally don't have the courage to ask ourselves this particular question due to our total reliance on our own fictitious ego. The more important part of this, what I noticed is that the inquiry was far more effective when these emotions were at their peak. For example, if we were to conduct such an experiment at the peak, the result would be very drastic and you would clearly find out who the fictitious I is and that the emotion would disappear almost immediately. And also, when I went through the talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi, it was an incessant repetition of who thinks, who feels, who cries, who is the one that wants, and it really didn't make sense to me. But then the book, due to its innumerable repetitions, remains with you, and then it clicks you due to your full investment in the book, and also you begin to ask the questions to your own self, like to whom are these thoughts and who is the one that is angry, etc., etc. The repetitious nature is what Ramana Maharishi was trying to guide us to find the fictitious I, and once it's identified effectively, it won't really come back and bother us, and you won't be able to get caught in the emotion at its peak. Another belief that I have is that Sri Ramana Maharishi has this strange guiding power over all our minds. Even though he is not in form, he is still able to guide us subtly through these talks, even though in written form, and through the Atman, such a knowledge flows and it sheds a light on our minds so we can progress into inquiry into the self. So even though Sri Ramana has been gone for 70 years now, and he still remains with us, and through the medium of the Atman, he passes on the knowledge to us so we can utilize his teachings and progress to self-realization. How did you like the video on why you need to read Talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi? Please do let me know in the comment section below. It is a 700-page book. If you get a chance and are pretty interested in self-realization and are a quite emotional person, this may be the book for you. Also, if you like the content, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.